Easy to do now. Okay. So hello, Dr. Michele Pfannestiel. I am so happy to welcome you to this, our first season for the American Association of Food Safety and Public Health Veterinarians. This is episode 8. And this is really just the luck of the draw in some ways, because we're going to just kind of segue from our previous episode on number 7, where we talked about Army veterinarian Dr. Laura Rothfeld and the different ways to get into the Army. And I see you took the third way, which is not, maybe it is, might be the best kept secret way. I don't know. But I want to start really with what, first of all, where are you located? That's always my favorite thing to start with. Where are you living right now?
So hi there. Thanks so much for having me on. And home right now is outside Cleveland, Ohio. I'm in Strongsville.
Oh, okay. And you just, didn't you move there just like this around this year, something like that last year?
Yeah, as we're recording this, it's the spring of 22, and we moved during the pandemic in the spring of 2020, and came out here, and we lived in a rental apartment in Cleveland, and then moved into our house in September. So we managed to miss most of the house buying craze. We got in kind of beforehand, thank heaven.
True. Yes. Yeah, that would have been so bad. Yeah. And so are you in a rural setting or a city, or what would you call it?
We are in the suburbs. So
Okay.
We moved from the woods of Maine into suburban Cleveland, Ohio. I have a postage stamp lawn that it's going to take somebody 15 minutes to mow. My house is so much less work. The land is so much less work. We have so much more free time now that I'm not managing 4 acres and timber and animals and eggs and fencing.
Yeah. And everybody has that part in their life that is something they're trying to go for, and then others experience and they're like, okay, no, I'm ready for a change, or what have you. But really, when you talk about having, a lot of animals that you were taking care of, I guess that brings me really to the next question is, why did you want to become a vet? Or tell me a little bit about that journey to becoming a vet.
So I was not one of those kids that wanted to be a vet when they grew up. I went to college when I was a little kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut.
Totally. Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
Really wanted to be an astronaut. And then I graduated with a degree in economics and geology out of college, not a natural path to veterinary medicine.
Not at all, no.
And then what ended up happening is we had an elderly cat that got diabetes.
Yeah.
And our vet took like 3 months to diagnose him. And I was like, I can do better than this. And in the process of trying to learn about and manage feline diabetes and talking to other vets, I did, what you're supposed to do and be like super exploratory about what do I want to do when I grow up? Because I had just come home from the Peace Corps. So I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer.
Oh, I had no idea that you had done Peace Corps. I have a good friend who did. She wasn't a veterinary student or a veterinarian, but she loved the experience so much.
Yeah, no, I can't say that I loved my experience. We were in the Middle East. I was Peace Corps Jordan 1. I worked in a Palestinian refugee camp, and it was challenging.
That's tough.
Yeah, it was tough. But anyway, I came home and I was like, well, I don't know what to, I was like, I don't know what to do. I was temping. It was the internet boom years in the late 90s. And I wanted to figure out what I was going to do. And I was balancing, do I want to go for a medical career, or do I want to go get a doctorate in geology? Because I love rocks. Like, I super love rocks. And I thought about it, and I talked to people, and I looked at the job market, and to be a PhD in geology, I knew I was not cut out to be in academia.
Okay.
And so PhDs in geology go and work for oil and gas companies. Well, I had done that already, and I really didn't want to go do that. And the field of like environmental sciences and stuff like that really kind of hadn't been invented yet for geologists. It was mostly
true. So that time frame was around when?
It was the turn of the century. It was, year 2000, Y2K. Remember all that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We were all
We were
preparing
all
for it.
and so I was looking at, what are my options, and I decided on veterinary medicine through this journey with my cat. I went and I shadowed veterinarians, and I did all the things, and I loved it. I loved medicine.
See?
I loved the diagnostics.
Yeah. Diagnostics, it's that mystery and
Yes.
to solve it. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't realize for a very, very long time that I was kind of going through my diagnostics with clients, and some of them loved it. They'd be like, oh yeah, this is going on. And I'd be, oh, okay, then what about this? And we have this big question and answer thing that would take quite a time. Right. And then it was like, yeah, then mystery solved and hero, and you had the end of the story, and there you go. So then you were living where and applied to which college?
Okay, so at that time, when I decided I was going to do this, I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts,
Oh,
with
okay.
all of my girlfriends from college. I went to college outside Boston,
Oh, okay.
and I had another friend who had come home from the Peace Corps as well. And we were like, we should live together and figure out what we're going to do when we grow up. Because it turns out you come home from the Peace Corps and you don't get to be a Peace Corps volunteer your whole life. You spend most of your life being a returned Peace Corps volunteer.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
And so
it defined you. It
yeah,
defines you.
it
Okay.
did. It really did. Like, my goal was to be a Peace Corps volunteer
Right.
for as long as I could remember. And then I was, and then I was done.
Now what? Now what? Yeah. Now what?
Right. So we lived in Cambridge. I was working for an internet consulting company because we had those back then. And I was trying to convince banks and insurance companies to go onto this neat little thing called the World Wide Web. And I gave up when an insurance company we were courting to do their web strategy was like, we're going to buy everybody Ford Explorers instead. And instead of having a real web strategy,
right,
they were going to have like a landing page and the web page on the side of the Ford Explorers. I was like, whose brother owns the Ford dealership?
You're ahead of your time. Let's just say it. And you still are. Keep going. Tell us what happened.
Right. I am a unicorn. So I looked at that and I looked at the opportunities in medicine and I was like, yeah, nope, I'm not doing that. So I quit my job. I had talked to the people at Tufts, and I'm gonna admit something we're not supposed to say as veterinarians. I graduated from my undergraduate degree. I was one of 10% of my class that did not get Latin honors. Now I graduated from undergrad with a 2.75.
How did you get in?
2.75. Okay.
Oh, okay. So somehow you got an interview.
I did. And so I went, I talked to the people at Tufts. Okay. And I will say my undergrad degree is from Wellesley, which allows me to think anybody will talk to me and wants me as a student. I'm not going to lie. Because that's a thought I go through life with. Everybody wants me as a student because it happens to be true.
Okay.
And I went and I talked to Tufts and they're like, yeah, that undergrad degree, that undergrad is not very good, but you also didn't take most of the science classes.
Right.
And we kind of don't care what you got in the distributions. So I was like, okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so I gave myself a challenge. I said, okay, well, if I go to take undergrad freshman chemistry and I get an A, I will know that this is the path for me. I am cut out for it. And then this is what I will pursue. And if I didn't, then I will find another job and I will figure something else out. Mm-hmm. So it was Easter weekend, 1999. I announced to my parents I was quitting my job and I was going to go I'm a trust fund baby. So I took my trust fund money. I'm very privileged in that respect. I took some of my trust fund money and I enrolled in Harvard continuing education. So the Harvard Extension School is the best kept secret in higher education. You can get an entire Harvard degree through the Extension School. And
okay. Is that something that's online now?
I have absolutely no idea. I
Okay,
haven't
that
looked
might
at
be
it.
worth
Probably
looking
is.
into, but still
Yeah.
the extension, okay, for
And it's all
Harvard.
Harvard professors. It's all
Yeah.
Harvard TAs. I took it at the Science Center on the Harvard campus. And it was a dream to be able to do it. And so I was living in Cambridge. I was up by MIT, and I would bike down to the Science Center for 7 o'clock Monday morning. I would study for an hour. I would go to class. So I took 8 credits of freshman chemistry in 8 weeks. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That was a do or die test. That's fair. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, what better test can you have than
Right.
can I hack it in vet school?
Oh, yeah, because I did talk already about how they shortened the semester, a semester of regular college is now a module that is 4 to 6 weeks of vet school.
Yeah. I mean, we were doing that in the early 2000s at Georgia. We were like this first or second class to go through that. It was a lot.
A nightmare. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
It was a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I did 8 credits of Harvard freshman chemistry in 8 weeks. And the question was, would I get an A? If I got an A, then I would go forth and do this. And I got an A.
Yay!
I got an A.
Obviously, but still, it's a good story.
Right. Yeah. I did chemistry 90 hours a week. Like I ate and slept and dreamed, and like I can't eat Annie's mac and cheese anymore because that's all I ate that summer.
Well, the truth is, if you get yourself in that mindset and that flow and you really immerse, then organic chemistry, if you hit after that, should be a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, it absolutely, no, it totally was. And so so then what happened that summer is I was like, well, I'm doing pretty well. I'm getting A's. My professors like me. I'm really good at chemistry. It turns out I'm really good at chemistry. That was part of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And I started looking at vet schools. Okay, but I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so what are my choices? Tufts, Penn, and Cornell. And I looked at them and I looked at the price tags. Now, mind you, this was in 1999 and the price tags were like, oh my God, how am I ever going to pay this back? So
don't forget you had that economics for your undergraduate, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
I totally did. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I wrote away for this book about vet schools. Like it was this review book that listed all 26 of them or however many we had at that point.
Okay.
And I was flipping through the books and I was looking, we had the witchy schools, we had all these things. I was like, okay. And then I got to the page about the University of Georgia.
Okay.
And on the page about the University of Georgia, talked all about it. And then it said, University of Georgia grads graduate with the lowest average cumulative debt.
Debt, right. The low. Okay. So Georgia. All right. Then what?
So Georgia. Yeah. And I was like, all right. Okay. And then a Peace Corps friend of mine who she went to Emory and then went back to Georgia after the Peace Corps. She's like, come down to Georgia. You can go to Georgia State, do all your rest of your undergrad, and then apply to Georgia, and we'll live together and be great. And I was like, sure.
You'll have your residency and yada, yada,
I'll have
yada.
my residency. Right. I'll do all of that. I'll do all of that sort of stuff. And so I said, great, I'll do that. And so on like a wing and a prayer, I left Cambridge, Massachusetts, right next to MIT, spending my days in Harvard Square, and I moved down to Georgia.
Yeah, so different.
So different. Now, my friend, in the 3 weeks between when we made these plans and when I moved, she moved to China.
Wait, what? No. All right. Okay.
Like this is what Peace Corps volunteers do. We like up and move.
Yeah, that's true. The ones I know are, yeah, true. Okay.
That's pretty true.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm still moving to Georgia. So I moved to Beaufort, Georgia before the Mall of Georgia was built. So
boring.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then what happened? Okay.
It was like going to, I used to say, I worked in Jordan and I've worked in Georgia. And it is equally culturally challenging. And putatively, we speak the same language when I go down to Georgia. And that was where the similarities ended.
Yeah. You had English, but that was it. Oh my gosh.
That was it.
So I think that was a great idea and a great plan. And you bring up the point where people have the opportunity really to consider which veterinary school to go to if they make the right plans. So I noticed that you ended up getting into the scholarship program for the Army. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, sure. So what ended up happening is I went to Georgia, got residency, did all the rest of my classes, got into Georgia and started.
Yeah.
And then we had a careers course because there were a couple of veterinarians, Corey Brown and Chris King. He's a lab animal vet, and it's Corey Brown, the pathologist of the Gray Book, that Corey Brown. Both wonderful people, and both of them were looking at the state of veterinary medicine and encouraging the students to look at a broader diversity of veterinary careers, because there really are so many things we can do with the DVM.
Correct.
Yes. And so as part of careers course, they had the Army recruiter come in. They had somebody from, one of the previous graduating classes who was, probably the guy at Fort Gordon. And they came in and talked about what does it mean to be an Army veterinarian? And I fell in love with the idea of becoming an Army veterinarian and doing civil service,
Yes.
and it's like the Army equivalent of doing the
Peace Corps, right? And you get the travel.
And you get the travel, right? And you got to remember, at this point, we were already in Iraq and Afghanistan. We were in Army at war. I had
early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So early 2000s. And I was like, well, this seems cool. They'll pay for vet school. I'll get a stipend, all these. And it seems like neat work. And I wanted to be, at that point, I wanted to be a lab animal veterinarian. And of course, the Army had a fabulous,
best laid plans. Keep all right, go ahead. So the Army shows up and
the Army shows up.
You get the stipend. They pay your way through school, and then you also have to do some trainings. I remember that it was sort of like ROTC in a way. You had maybe your weekend trainings, and then your 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4.
We had to do. I did active duty. We went on ADT, we called it, active duty for training. And I did it all in their lab animal medicine program, because the Army lab animal medicine program is like one of the best in the world. Right.
Right.
I tell you what, I had the whole thing mapped out.
Right. I can well imagine. And then you, consequently though, how much time did you owe them once they would put you through?
Yeah, once they put me through, I was on a 4 and 4 contract. So no, a 3 and 5, and then they changed it to 4 and 4. So I was on a 3 and 5, 3 years active, 5 years reserve. And I thought that would be no problem, because I was going to go do my residency in lab animal medicine, and then I would serve, and I would, get out as a major, and, whatever. And that was the plan. And I had all these designs on deploying with civil affairs and
we didn't talk about that. Yes, that's right. You have the opportunity. The Army tells you what you're going to do.
Yes.
And one of the things you can do is go in, and your deployment could be civil affairs, which again probably spoke to your Peace Corps background.
Peace Corps, economics. I did a lot of poli-sci undergrad, like a lot of that, like a lot of that stuff, like really fit. And so what ended up happening is I didn't get I was first runner up my first year, and I didn't get it. And so I reapplied second year. And I remember sitting there, I wrote this essay, because all I really had to do was rewrite the essay.
So when you say you didn't get in, what happens is a board sits in the Army, and they make the decisions about the candidates who've applied. And I went through that. Not many people realize that they had that when I was going through in the late 70s. And I had applied to the Air Force, not knowing that the Air Force clinical veterinarians all went into the Army, and then they didn't have room for me, even though I'd passed the Air Force board, and they dropped the ball and didn't put me into the second year application. So
got it.
I came away with a lot of debt. You were so smart. You still stuck with it and went for the second year. That is incredible. So then what happened?
Yeah. So then I was one of 5 people admitted that year. And out of, however many bajillions of, right.
Right. Across all the veterinary schools. Yes.
Right. And then I commissioned, I met my husband 2 weeks later.
Okay.
So I met him at a party 2 weeks later, and, and then I went through the rest of vet school. But I mean, it was really a gift. Like, the Army was really a gift, because it gave me someplace that I could envision post vet school, because you get in it, you're this close, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to pass boards.
Right.
I'm never going to make it through small animal internal medicine.
Yes. Yeah.
All of that, like, mental angst and drama. You knew there was an end. You knew you had a job, and a good one with benefits. You knew.
Don't forget the benefits back then, especially. The healthcare benefits alone were worth so much.
Were worth so much.
They still are. They still are. Yeah.
Right. And that was a really big load off. And then, we came to senior year. We went through the first round of base selection, and I didn't get any of my bases. And then they came back to me somewhere around Christmas, and they're like, 29 Palms or Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And I was like, Fort Monmouth.
So at that point, when you talk about the base selection, generally as a person who's in the service, you have the ability to put down they'll give you options, and then you can rank your options, is what you're saying. And then even though you didn't get anything that was ranked in your option,
I put Great Lakes as my first choice, and somehow I didn't get it.
Yeah. So then you ended up New Jersey, did you say?
Yeah, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And it actually worked out really well, because my husband lived in New Jersey and he did not have to change jobs.
Okay.
So we ended up buying a house like halfway between, he worked in Princeton, and then Fort Monmouth is down the shore. And we bought a house in between there in Freehold, New Jersey, which, if you know Bruce Springsteen, that's the town Bruce Springsteen is from.
Okay. And so at this point you're commissioned, and you were commissioned as a captain, and you had that rank when you were in veterinary school.
In veterinary school, I was actually a butter bar. I was the second lieutenant.
Okay.
And then we went to, I graduated as a second lieutenant. And then I got married and graduated all within the space of and went on a honeymoon all within the space of 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then we moved into our house in New Jersey, and then I disappeared down to Fort Sam to do my officer basic.
Oh, I went to that. Yes. Except yours was active duty and mine was as a reservist. So yours was months long, correct?
So I was down at Fort Sam for 12 of the longest weeks of my life.
Yes.
Sam Houston in June, July, and August.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I had rashes on parts of my body I did not know existed.
Yeah. Well, I know.
Yeah, like a 12-mile ruck march in Cat 5 heat, and
oh yeah, we had people going down with heat exhaustion, and luckily we were Army Reserve medical officers, and there were doctors in the troop, so they could begin to administer.
Right, I know.
Serious.
Yeah,
I am completely 100% serious. This is true.
Absolutely. No, we were there with the dentists and doctors, and we
were old. You guys were active duty, and you guys were young. We were all old.
Yeah. So we had
people in their 50s and 60s, and even one person who was in their 70s. They needed medical officers. Yeah, a surgeon. They needed so badly. I said, well, what kind of bonus did they give you to join? It was, but I'll tell you, he was a guy who camped all the time. He was fit. He was good.
Good for 70. Him.
Yeah. So then again, 3 months, because yeah, you're active duty, so they put you through that longer.
Right. Yeah, no, it's, and then I came home and I
Yeah.
started and I reported to Fort Monmouth, and Fort Monmouth was a food inspection station. I had
And then you would have been also, and this is something we touched on very briefly, was that you would have been the officer in charge.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, welcome to the Army. You have a little
There's
bit of time
21
there
soldiers.
where you get to learn how to be an officer. And then, oh, by the way, you just graduated vet school, and this was before the FIGV program, which Laura
Yes.
talked about in
Well before
episode
that.
7, right before. Yeah, well before. So you were one of those that
Yes.
met that challenge, which was inordinate. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
here,
because
yeah.
they dropped me at Fort Monmouth, which is in the New York tri-state area. I was in charge of food inspections for the New York tri-state area. Okay, there is a huge amount of Army of DoD food that goes through New Jersey. Like all of our flavorants go through the like factories on the New Jersey Turnpike. I inspected the M&M plant in Hackettstown, New Jersey. I inspected the place that makes the little tiny Tabasco sauces. I
The
inspected
Tabasco sauces, yes, those were so cute.
right.
So,
I
yeah.
inspected Skinny Pop ice cream because it was made in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did all.
So dare I ask, was this your introduction to food safety?
Oh yeah, yeah. This was, but what was really interesting is I wanted to be a lab animal vet.
I'm
what?
following. Yes, I completely got that. I'm following how there was the whole plan. And
There was the
the
whole
lab
plan.
animal, and
But
yeah.
I was really good at food inspection because
Yeah.
floors, walls, and ceilings and standard operating procedures, good manufacturing practices really
Just
don't
spoke
change.
to your brain. Yeah. Yeah.
Really don't change. They just, and so I loved going and doing my audits. I loved training people to do audits. I loved all of it.
I love it too. Yeah.
And it takes a special kind of person to love a food safety audit. I'm not gonna lie. That's fine. And then what ended up happening is that, so I graduated from vet school in 2006. I served on active duty till 2009. And I was at Fort Monmouth, and then I got transferred up to West Point. And so I was in charge of the Army mascot mule program because I was the only person in the district who had any large animal experience.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, I believe that yes, I think that is the most exciting part people don't know about, that we are handling military working animals, which can include equine as well as the canine. Mm-hmm.
Yep, my mascot mules. So I'm all in on Go Army Beat Navy.
Right.
So
okay. That's awesome. Good.
I have a flag. We fly it. We had a good run for the past couple of years. So, and then this year's football game was pretty good, even if we lost. So anyway, so that's what I did, and then I got out. I didn't have, my first commander was not a very good commander, and I didn't want to change. I was like, if they accept her, this is not an organization for me. My second commander was really much better. And he's like, but Michelle, I'm not going to try and talk you into it because this is the organization that kept her on board. And I was like, okay, so I ended up getting.
That's really true. It's hard to explain how hard it is when you have commanders that are the supervisors above you who are not supportive of you when you're trying to enact and back up the Army regulations amongst your team. And that is quite overwhelming at times if you are excuse me, a rule follower, which you have to be to get into the military. You have to be a rule follower.
Right.
And then when you're trying to just have everybody on board so you can move the entire team forward as a team, as you do, everybody needs to be green, they said, move them all forward. And then all of a sudden there's slackers or what have you, and then your commander doesn't really back you up. And really, what? Okay. Yeah, I had the same thing at the end. I was up for getting promoted to colonel. It could have happened anytime with my next boards. And yeah, I admit I really wanted that, as well as the excitement of being a commander. I really loved that challenge. It would have gone up and up more and more. And then, when you have commanders that, just don't support you, then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I want to go home and I want to live my life. But I
Right.
do love and appreciate the Army. I'm so proud to have been serving, and I very much appreciate the benefits, and now as a veteran, my
Right.
benefits.
Yeah,
So
no,
I imagine it's somewhat similar to you, and you would have been rolling into the reserve time at this point. Is that
yeah,
right?
so
Okay.
I rolled into IRR, but you got to remember this was 2009, and
Mhm.
we were in the depths of the Great Recession.
Oh, absolutely. That's when I joined 2008, and I got immediately deployed to Afghanistan. So
Okay.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
did not know it was a recession. I just thought like, oh, business is so bad, I got to go in the Army.
Right. Yeah. No, we were definitely in a recession.
Right.
And again, I was trying to be a lab animal vet, and Pfizer fired half of their lab animal vets that year. And I was in New Jersey,
Oh,
and I could not
okay.
get a job. And if you couldn't
Right.
get a job as a
Right.
lab animal
Yeah.
vet in New
Yeah.
Jersey, there were no jobs to be had.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
And what ended up happening is I was having I had my kids around that time, and I had kids with food allergies that I was trying to nurse, and it was the burgeoning local food movement, and I was trying to find local meat. And so I know how to look up on the USDA directory because that was my job.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would find the local
Mhm.
slaughterhouses, and I would go and talk to them, and they'd be like, oh my God, the USDA, it's so hard. And I was like, but that guy comes to my office.
Right.
Like, this
Right.
is not.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to farmers and producers and processors who were having all of this trouble with food safety. And I was like, well, I do this. And what really truly ended up happening is I looked around and I was like, where is this local food movement taking off? It wasn't really taking off in New Jersey. And it was really like near where we were. It was taking off in the Hudson Valley in New York, and it
Mhm.
was taking off in southern Maine.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I was like, well, it's time to pick up and go to Maine. My mother is from Maine. We used to vacation in Maine. Like, I love Maine.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so we really, much like I pulled up stakes and left from Cambridge to go to
Mhm.
Georgia, we pulled up stakes with kids this time, to go from New Jersey to Maine. And I started my business in Maine when the largest organic cattle producer in Maine, Raz Caldwell, came up to me at the Maine Ag Trade Show and said, hey, I hear you can write a HACCP plan. I was like, yeah,
Right. Totally. 100%. That's exactly what we learned to do. Yes.
right. And then he said, can I pay you to write me a HACCP plan? I was like, yep. And that is how my business was born.
Wow. That is so interesting. So you went to a trade show,
Mhm.
and were you going just as a person, or did you have were you in the exhibit hall with a booth type of
No,
thing?
I definitely did not. I didn't have business at that time, so I didn't have a
Okay.
booth. But I had called the state meat and poultry veterinarian, because Maine was one of the states, still is, that had a meat and poultry inspection program. And I called Henrietta and I said, tell me about this. What's the need in the state? And I mean, I swear to God, she talked to me for like an hour. And I was like, I would love for you to come and consult on this.
Mhm.
And so she started talking to people, and I went to the trade show. I took part. They had a USDA presentation, and I can network with a brick wall. And so even back then, I was absolutely willing to go up to people, tell them who I am, and make offers to help them, which is what I do as an entrepreneur. And that's
Yes.
what I did. And I got 2 clients out of that one trade show, which made me, I think I made $16,000 my first year.
Mhm.
But when you're starting a business and you're learning how to do this, it might as well have been $1 million.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I venture to guess that a lot of your time was spent just developing your own forms and deciding how you were going to catalog and just
Yeah.
setting up the business. And then, dare I say, specifically setting up a food safety consulting business.
Right. So
and at that time, what did you call your business?
When I started, I was Dirigo Quality Meats because I was going to help meat production companies not only do their food safety, but use that veteran status. And I was going to broker deals to get local food into commodity meats.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned out to be way more work than I wanted to put into it. So I just did the food safety consulting. And it was, I mean, it's not that hard for me to write a HACCP plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do. And then what ended up happening is my business grew like exponentially. I mean, I made $16,000 my first year. I think I made $96,000 my second year. I doubled again the third year.
Mm.
And I was busy. It was so much fun. And I was writing these HACCP plans, and I would like hand people binders full of documents or, hard drives full of documents. And they'd look at me and they'd be like, okay, Dr. P, now what do I do?
Oh, and let me backtrack a little. How did you come up with the name Dorigo?
Dirigo is, it's the state motto of Maine. It's Latin for I lead.
Oh, how did I miss that? I did not know
right?
that. Okay, well, Maine people would know that. So
yeah, and Maine people absolutely knew that, right? And we are leading the way for food safety.
Beautiful. Great. So how did that segue into when did it come up that you got involved with the coaching?
So here's what happened. Okay. I was doing consulting projects up and down the East Coast. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because of my Army training, I could write a food safety plan for literally anything. Okay.
Right. You're right.
And I was
literally anything. Sure.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so I had a fisheries client. Okay. So fisheries HACCP is this whole separate ball of wax, but I could write a fisheries HACCP plan. I was fisheries HACCP trained. All those things. Right. And, I went out to Long Island in January, the end of January one year, to help a fish plant get ready for a third-party audit so they could sell into New York City.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was invited down. They knew what they had to do, all these sorts of things. Well, to get from Maine to the end of Long Island, you drive straight down, you go to New London where the Coast Guard Academy is. Uh-huh. And then you get on a boat and you traverse Long Island Sound. And I waved to Plum Island. So a lot of us in the public health sphere work at Plum Island. I did 6 fabulous weeks at Plum Island. Mm-hmm. And then you land at Orient Point, New York, and normally what you do is you take 2 more little tiny ferries across a couple of creeks on Long Island. Oh yeah. And you go from the North Shore to the South Shore. So
you had a travel day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a travel day.
Yeah.
In a blizzard.
Oh my God. Okay? Yeah.
And I had to actually drive from the North Fork all the way in and then all the way back out to the South Fork because the ferries were shut down.
Seriously? Okay. Yeah. Seriously. We have that thing here on the island. If the ferries are not working or whatever happens, then we have to drive around. Yeah.
Oh, it's just right.
That's the thing. You could be taking, right? Yeah. It had 2-3 hours to your trip, no matter what happens when a ferry's involved sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So I was driving and I was like, I was starting to look at listen to entrepreneurship podcasts and trying to, learn what it means to be a female CEO. This is really, this is I'm making several $100,000 a year. I have people, I have to manage them. So, listening to podcasts, that sort of thing. As my coach says, learning is my love language. And so I started to hear coaches on these podcasts, and I went out to this fisheries, and I had taken the very first ferry at 6:00, and I got to the pier around 10:30, and the guy was busy, and I was like, okay, I'll just look around. Usually they meet you and go around. I was like, but I can go do, my preliminary audit, tell you what my findings are. We can talk about the paper, all that sort of stuff. So I did that. Okay. And the guy was storing his surfing gear in his fish production room. And
did you say his surfing gear?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And he had a bathroom that opened right up onto the production floor.
Okay.
Right. And so I was like, well, this is suboptimal. We're going to have to work on fixing these things.
Okay.
So I do, I walk around for 45 minutes, an hour. I have a whole list of things. I meet him in the office. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. I start talking about it. 10 minutes into it, he stands up. He says, this is extortion. I'm going surfing. It's still blizzarding out, by the way. And so he grabs his surfboard off the wall of the production facility, right? Grabs his wetsuit, puts it all in the back of his truck and drives off.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Right. Well,
Wow.
Imagine this. I chase after him. I'm like, no, I can fix this. And he drove off. And I was out there in a blizzard in Long Island, not in a coat. And I was like, Michele, what are you doing?
And what just happened? Yeah.
What just happened?
What just happened? Right.
Right, exactly. And that was like the low point in my business.
Sure.
And I said to myself,
oh, absolutely. We're going to wonder, what did we do wrong? How did we talk, question ourselves, not realizing that anybody who has surfing gear and has violations that are so apparent has problems themselves and really, yeah.
Right. But I was in no space.
Yeah. And if anything, you came across very logically and you were trying to give him all this information. And if anything, look, your problem, you overwhelmed him, but how is that really your fault when you were doing your job and yada, yeah, on and on. Am I right? Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly. And so, and I told myself, I was like, Michele, if that was a guy, you'd have let him walk out the door. Right. Like I'd never chased a guy in my whole entire life.
I believe it. Yeah, of course.
Right. And I was going to chase a client.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Right.
And so I found one of the podcasts I had listened to on the way in was the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, she is speaking directly to me. I don't even know what the episode was, but she was talking directly to me. And so it did end up getting a little bit fixed. And I stayed there over, like, I did the best I could to fulfill the contract. Right. And what ended up happening was I signed up for Self-Coaching Scholars as Brooke's program on the ferry ride on the way home. I've been in the program for 4 years now. And coaching changed my life. It changed my business. And it was, the effect was so profound.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, I have to bring this to my people.
And by your people, you meant?
Food manufacturers.
Okay.
I meant food manufacturers, local food manufacturers who are so overwhelmed by the USDA process.
Yeah.
FSMA was just coming out at that.
Yeah. 2000, it was 16 somewhere.
Yeah. It was starting to roll out. It was coming out, and people were frightened. They were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do. That is all a coaching problem.
Oh.
I tell all of my people, look, you haven't killed anybody yet, right? You're probably doing 90% of food safety correctly, right? And now we just have to document it. Most people know what they're doing, for heaven's sake.
What a beautiful approach. I mean, that's so elegant. It's to the point. It's elegant. It is calming. Even I, who am not manufacturing anything this moment, I hear that. But the way you say it, your tone of voice, your delivery, and those words, it's like, oh, I could breathe. Thank you.
Well, it's really comforting to know that you're doing most things correctly.
Yes.
Because my clients really are doing most things correctly.
They're trying to be ethical, but also make a living at something they feel that it's important to them. Yes.
Right. And then the other thing is that if you think about how food safety came to us, right? So our food safety laws, and I'm not going to go through, 1908 and the jungle and, people.
Yeah, I was going to say we hadn't had a food safety law come into play for about 100 years. Then it came into play and everybody's freaking out. But
right, exactly. But, I mean, it's you've never been able to poison your neighbors. This has never been a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so what I looked at was, okay, if they're doing the actions of food safety correctly,
Mhm.
most of these people do not get into food because they are naturally very good at paperwork. Okay. This
Oh, yeah.
not a thing. Okay.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
people, they fall in love with their product
Mhm,
and they see their product as world changing. And
mhm,
I'm totally bought into that scenario,
mhm.
right? I am totally bought into pastured pork and grass fed, beef and dairy and all that, local food and local processing. But most of these people came up from the restaurant industry and don't know the difference between cooking and manufacturing. Okay. Some of these people, they're family businesses. Okay.
Mhm.
And I really do think every family business needs its own coaching. And all of the problems that I saw with people were because they didn't know how to manage their minds.
Mhm,
It isn't they didn't know how to cook to 165 degrees and
mhm,
cool the product in 3 hours. That was not the problem.
mhm.
They didn't know how to manage their minds, that they not only had to do that, but they had to write it down. And then they had to go back and check on the paperwork. Right.
Mhm.
And
So that process is missing because that's not really taught anywhere, so to speak. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So this developed into your university is,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
So what ended up happening is I saw this need and I experimented with a lot of ways of delivering content to people to help them with their mindset. And I had a lot of failures. I am not going to lie. I failed a lot and I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
And
Was your podcast part of that as far as
well, the
a way of
podcast,
delivering content?
yeah, the goal of the podcast was to convert customers and it
Okay.
never did that.
Mhm.
I thoroughly enjoyed all 4 years that I podcasted. I delivered solid information. I had amazing interviews. It's a beautiful podcast, but it had just run its course.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you something I learned the other day, which was in some ways a shock to me. I have been pursuing something that you had, in fact, talked to me about a year and a half ago, and
Mm,
that is my own pet food safety consulting business, and put together, contracted to have a beautiful website done, and really pursued my personal podcasts of Pet Food Vet and so forth. And I that's a labor of love for me, as is this set of podcasts that I'm doing for our national association. But I didn't again realize any conversion to customers kind of thing, that puzzled me for a while. And then one day I was talking to my sister, who I told you about. She's an accountant and she's brilliant, and she says, "But Donna, your website is it markets you, so
mm,
there's just something else out there for you, and keep your website going and keep your podcast going, because this is really who you are, and you're putting yourself out there. So you're essentially telling the world all about who you are, and
mm.
then the right career path will come again in front of you," which is very
Mhm.
amusing, because this might be my fifth career, whatever, of what I will be doing. And
But
so,
that's the beauty of a DVM,
yeah,
right?
which is what we could do because we have a DDM, right? And
Right.
so I I didn't comprehend really, and felt somewhat guilty, let's say, that this was my plan, but it had not come to the logical fruition.
Sure.
And so, but by the same token, I recognize what she said, because at the end of the day, I was producing content, and it was
Mhm.
content about myself, who I am, what I do, what I'm passionate
Yeah.
about, what I love, my ethics and my
Mhm.
level of commitment. So dare I say, 4 years of you podcasting, that is 100% a testament of who you are as an individual. You have just shown the world all of that
Right.
about you, that labor of love that you
Mhm.
gave away, that
Yeah.
information. And ultimately this created who you are, your presence on the
Mhm.
internet as well. So
Right.
I'm certain that worked in your favor still. Again, not doing things like, oh, I got to make this money and yada, yada. No, it's not about
It
that. At the
works.
end, it's a labor of love. It really
Right.
is.
Right. And so that's, and I used podcasting and talked to people on the podcast to better inform me about what the need is out there in my target market of food manufacturers.
Oh,
And
yes, that's what we call listening in marketing. That is exactly a whole thing of, yeah, you listen, you're talking, you're discussing, you're listening to what they need. Yes.
Right,
So go on.
exactly.
How did that affect what you began to create?
What that did, one is it taught me the skill of listening to my customers. And then it also, the journey has taught me, like, I love entrepreneurship. I like, if you look at my human design, I'm a generator and I've got a heart center, and we look at all this sort of stuff. And I'm like the people who are supposed to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
But what that means is that I give myself plenty of space to fail and let things teach me lessons, right? Because
so they're not really a failure. Let's just say that they aren't. They're a learning opportunity. And
absolutely.
And if you're like me, where you've always just pushed yourself, push to achieve, then if you don't hit that achievement, you'll wallow in that sense of doom and failure without realizing that this was a learning opportunity. It's a huge mind shift. I can't even begin to say. I wish somebody would have just really made me own that a long time ago. It's something I eventually learned, but it sounds like you came into it very quickly in some ways because of perhaps your coaching.
Yeah, right. And when you learn to manage your mind and you learn, I mean, truly, like, my success is inevitable. I have the most elegant solution for food safety for any food manufacturer out there. And I have that because I listened to my customers. I focus on my customers. We're working on like design and how can we make it accessible and what, all these sorts of things. And doing 4 years of podcasting taught me how to do that. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't shown up week after week after week for all 40 listeners.
Wow. Right. But then again, that body of work is still available.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is your podcast called?
It's called Food Safety University, just like my product. Okay. So you can go find it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on everything, right? And go give it a listen and tell me what you think. And then what I transitioned to was going over to LinkedIn and doing stuff on LinkedIn, which was another way to experiment, because when you have the kind of niche that you and I have, right? Pet food manufacturers and food manufacturers, where do those people hang out? Because the marketers are all like, go where your people are. And we're like, and where are the people?
Okay. Right. Right.
Where are the people? Right.
Yeah.
And so learning where it's been a long journey of learning where they're not.
Okay.
But that's okay, because I'm so dedicated to the idea that we can create stronger and more profitable companies through food safety. And by doing that, we create economically revitalized communities. We create stronger urban areas. We create stronger rural areas. Because in the core of my being, I am an Army officer, and I believe that food security is national security.
Yes. Yes. Food security. Yes.
Food security is national security. And when we can feed ourselves, that matters. And when communities can feed themselves, that matters.
Well, that's essentially we have on the island, because everybody, you got to get stuff brought in. It costs a lot of money. Right. But we now have a growers hub that created during the pandemic. Whoever did that, thank you so much. The Whidbey Islands Growers Hub and all the local farming. Everything is local, and you can go there. You don't have to belong to anything. It's not a club. It's a hub, and you go on there, you order your stuff, then you go pick it up, your sacks of things, and you have it for the week. And it's a beautiful concept, but it allowed us to say, okay, if things shut down and we can't get a supply chain to the island, we do have our own food.
We have ways of feeding ourselves, and that's incredibly important.
Yeah,
and
very proud of it.
and this mind and the mindset to implement food safety and to do the right thing the right way every single time you do it, to have accountability, right?
Mhm.
And as my coach Chris Plackey says, accountability is not an event, accountability is a conversation. And having those conversations when the little things pop up, hey buddy, why didn't you write down that temperature, right? And coaching people to ask powerful questions to get the right answers, because the reasons people don't do food safety at work are generally because they either feel physically unsafe at work. Okay, I've had that happen. I had somebody who was short waiting cans or jars that they were hot filling, because by filling them up all the way to the top, they risked 3rd-degree burns.
Okay.
What person making $15 an hour is risking 3rd-degree burns on their hands? Zero.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
And so it took one very hard conversation with management and 15 minutes in the processing floor to realize that we could turn something 90 degrees and solve that problem. But I had to ask the problem. I had to teach people how to have conversations, hard conversations about why are we doing it this way? Are you feeling physically safe here? Are you feeling financially safe here? Because people don't feel financially safe in food manufacturing. The money's always going to run out. I'm spending the boss's money. I'm not making enough money. They're like these really pernicious financial conversations. And then we ask, are you emotionally safe? Racism, sexism, the Me Too movement, like all sorts of things happen on food manufacturing floors where people don't feel safe.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's a big deal. And so and then what I'm constantly asking myself is, how can I, me and my company, create process that people buy into so that the natural outcome of their work is food that conforms to specification, because that's what we're going after. That's the definition of quality.
That is the goal. But because you're being so careful about finding out specifics for each unique company, you have to create a unique way of accomplishing that to meet their needs. They're not going to fit a cookie cutter. It's not a cookie cutter
none
situation.
of my people fit a cookie cutter. I don't do commodity foods. And I work with local and sustainable food manufacturers, and I know them, and I understand them, and I have people on my team. Like I have this fabulous project manager who's been through the process herself, and she is the patience of Job, and she
Sure.
That's every I cross. I thought I could dot every I and cross every T, and then I met Karen.
So at this point, you've had the Food Safety University going for how long?
Well, it started as something different. It started as the Power Group, and I started that back before the pandemic. So I probably started that in 2018. I reinvented it in 2019.
I saw the rebranding and the emails because I'm on your email list.
Yeah. So I worked as hard as I could to make it work the way I'd originally envisioned it, and it wasn't working for people. And so we burn it all down and we go back to the drawing board. So I did that. And then I came out with, I did a lot of one-on-ones in that time, trying to figure out what people needed and all that sort of stuff. And then we rebranded and we came out with Food Safety University. We put it on one set of software. We put it on Google Classrooms, and invited people in a beta test. We upgraded this time last year to a Kajabi system, and did kind of like the beta version. We did alpha and beta. And we've been on that system since I've really been selling it this way since the fall. And it's been phenomenally successful. People love the program. I'm rolling out a referral program now. So it's almost like an affiliacy program. So if you like food,
like being an ambassador or an affiliate. Okay.
yeah. Because 100% of my business, like I looked, and 100% of my business comes from referrals. So I'm no longer doing paid marketing.
Oh, yeah.
No more Facebook ads.
Yeah. You've done so much by creating your own content through the years. And now you're going to, essentially it's digital marketing, and the affiliate or ambassador is the next logical step. That's fantastic. I was so impressed when I saw how you rebranded to Food Safety University. Believe me, I've been watching. I just, when I said, before we actually turned on the record button for this, folks, I said to her, yeah, you're ahead of your time. And that is really true. That resonates with me. I come up with ideas sometimes, and I have to actually create the entire thing because there's no template, and people are just standing back going, what's the bonus doing now? But and you're very much the same. That's why we're friends. And it's just been amazing. You know what I love? I love that this was a fantastic time to talk to you in depth about how your veterinary career evolved in very much different manifestations of your business, I think is how I would put it. Is that pretty much the case? Because we went from lab animal medicine, Army veterinarian, food safety, Army did the same thing to me, food safety. I loved it. I love food. I love animals. It's all good. Yes.
Right, exactly.
And then here we are many years
later.
It's
been a beautiful, beautiful journey. I love it. I'm really good at it. It's really gratifying. Not everybody gets the privilege to do what they're good at, what makes a difference in the world, that gets paid the way I get paid. Like the level of privilege that I have to work with the people that I have. People trust me with their family business. They trust me with their dreams. They trust me with, they're so afraid when they have a recall, you know what I mean? And I get to create space for that. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is quite remarkable. So I do know when we were chatting last year that you had a move coming up. You made the move because the last we talked in a moment ago, it was Maine, and now Ohio.
Now it's Ohio. So now I live.
So what happened? What came in front of you that? Like, we're going to move.
This is one of the things. Okay, so I move at the drop of the hat, and I've done it before, probably will do it again. And I had an economic opportunity to go build my lockers. So I have a patent on an upcycled shipping container to turn it into a meat manufacturing facility. And
what? Okay, first I heard patent. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I have a patent over there somewhere.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. I just kind of couldn't breathe for a second when you were like patent. I don't know why that was so.
Yeah, so I have a patent, and I moved out here because I had a manufacturer who was gonna help me manufacture these, and we moved here and to take advantage of economic opportunity. It happened at a good time. My kids were doing very badly in homeschooling during the pandemic. We lived in the woods in Maine. There were no kids around us. And we saw this as an opportunity to downsize, get rid of a lot of our stuff, become responsible for a lot fewer things so we could concentrate on our children and concentrate on growing the business. And so I remember moving out here. I was driving I was driving through New York, through upstate New York, and thinking, well, if this doesn't work and I have just made a really colossal mistake, I know I can feed the family because I am a damn good coach, and somebody out there will pay me for my coaching. And I knew that. And I was like, well, all it takes is $1 and a dream, Michelle. Let's go figure out if we can do this. And
Yes.
working with that manufacturer, I'm not going to lie, hasn't worked out the way that I wanted to. There were a lot of contributing factors, not the least of which was the supply chain imploding. Very, very hard to upcycle shipping containers when there are no shipping containers anymore.
And then the tiny house movement has come into play, and shipping
Yeah.
containers now cost a lot more money.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Yes.
I have no doubt that my idea will come back around. I'll make it work. Because I just know that I will. Like, it's the same way. I mean, today's my 16th wedding anniversary. I knew I was going to marry my husband 2 weeks after I met him. And I know I'm going to make this work. It's just not working right now, but that doesn't mean it's a failure. It doesn't mean our adventure out here is a failure, because we have learned so much that I'm so grateful for. And so we're here in the burbs of Ohio. I work out of my house. My husband works for me. He works out of the basement. I work out of the office. And we have built a really quite amazing life. And it's been great, because I'm not going to lie. I'm a fantastic coach of myself and other people. And that has allowed me to live in a pretty perpetual state of either life is great, or when it sucks, I can handle this.
Sure. And really by coming up with these ideas and saying, okay, it might not be the time for this right now, doesn't mean it cannot manifest itself a different way. And actually, I'll talk to you offline and about something along those lines. Not that I have answers, but my mind works in really interesting ways. And let's face it, we're all exposed to different things. I'm sitting here in my office. When I left, my house was completely organized and set up the way I wanted before I got into the Army, and ended up deploying and then working near my unit when I was in the, oh my gosh. So I was gone. I came back, and my office was turned into my son's project room. And he's going to school as a mechanical engineer and has 3 3D printers.
Oh my
and
God.
I've got this tiny little space. My office is now 3 by 3.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So here I am. This is my chair is my office. And
right.
Yeah. But no, the good news is I'm with my kids. My kids are so incredible. They have, again, like, run things when I wasn't here. And, I love it. Who gets to say they get to be in a multi-generational setup with, 12 acres on beautiful Whidbey Island. And, yeah. So,
I mean, that's amazing. And, to tie it back to our veterinary careers, one of the gifts, and I'm not going to lie, it has taken me a very long time to decide that my DVM is a gift. Less than 50% of us would recommend this profession to somebody else.
Right.
But one of the many gifts that my DVM has given me is the ability to assess what is actually going on and be flexible as to the response.
Okay, right. And sometimes we don't articulate what you just said, but that is the way we do handle things as a role as veterinarians.
Right.
So in looking back on your career as a veterinarian, which has had a few manifestations, I noticed that it leans very heavily, of course, into entrepreneurship and as you said, creating with a patent. I mean, obviously, your mind from going to economics, geology, to go way over to here. Would you have been able to predict? No. But you're so happy where you are, and you have a lot to offer still the profession, because I do want everyone to know that, Michele has worked within our organization, Food Safety Public Health Veterinarians, with wearing different hats. And and she still is very highly involved in it. So she devotes and volunteers time to doing that as well. And and I appreciate that so much.
I'm a big believer in organized veterinary medicine.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
What? I am a big believer in organized veterinary medicine.
Right.
I think it really organized veterinary medicine makes our profession, a lot of what it is. Can we do better? Of course, but in order to do better, you got to be involved in the conversation.
And this is where I again want to speak to veterinarians who are out there listening. Even if you're a clinical veterinarian, you're thinking, oh, what else can I do with my DVM? This is certainly the podcast for you, because we are talking about different careers. But one thing that has been a thread that's in every single episode has been networking as well as organized veterinary medicine to bring you these opportunities. But what's important is, what can we change? What can we do to make things, where can we have some effect? Where can we really learn to be leaders within veterinary medicine? And honestly, it is this organization. Right now, we will be making a transition. I will be stepping down as president. I had a 2-year training time as a president-elect, and then 2 years serving in office. And I will be stepping down this summer, fall timeframe. And Angela Demery, a veterinarian, will be taking over from me as president. At this point, we're looking for a number of, we have a number of openings. We're looking for a new president-elect. And it's not a huge time sink, but it is a commitment in terms of being available and for meetings. And you have the opportunity to learn how to lead in veterinary medicine. If this is something that speaks to you and you're saying to yourself, I want to make a difference, I foresee that some type of a change is necessary, I don't know where or how to make that happen, at least talk to me about it. There may be that opportunity with our organization for you to come into the leadership position, work as a leader in this organization, use this as a jumping off point to go further, even to AVMA as a leader, which is a distinct possibility, because we have representatives from our organization who actually represent and are helping to enact law via
I'm the incoming delegate to the Legislative Advisory Committee, and I will be that for the next 6 years. And we have deep effects on laws that affect veterinarians. And it's, there are so many opportunities within our organizations. We have small groups that do things. We have that are very, very focused and that sort of thing. But if you have any love for working in the government, working as a veterinarian, doing some of the neat things that we do as veterinarians, all of those people who hire are part of our organization. The networking opportunities at the Food Safety and Public Health Vets are completely unparalleled. We have, I'm not kidding, we have the best people who are part of our organization.
And they always share when there's things coming up, you find out behind the scenes. And I'm very proud to say that one of the things we are going to be having with our new revised website, which is being built over the next 2 months, is a job board. It's fully automated. It is something that we just didn't have the personnel staff to take on, put up jobs, take them to, no, this one will be fully automated. And this is a huge chance for people to see jobs as they come over that pertain specifically to these types of food safety and public health jobs for veterinarians. And so I just am so excited about that. We have other things that are available to do within our organization. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in the show notes. And I'm also going to put that information. Michele, what information will you share with us to put into the show notes? Certainly a way to contact you for coaching, as an example.
Okay. Yeah. So, we talked about my coaching journey, and I primarily coach food manufacturers and consult with food manufacturers, but I also work with people who work in highly regulated industries. So I have clients who come for one-on-one life coaching, okay, figuring it all out. And they all work in highly regulated industries. I work with people in hedge funds, in medical devices, I work with some other coaches, all that sort of stuff. So I have a limited number of one-on-one slots available, and coaching will change your life. And so if you want to, the easiest way to come find me is find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually Dr. Hassip on LinkedIn. So we'll put that link in the show notes. If you are interested in Food Safety University, you can go download our 12 Steps of HACCP program, process. It's the best. I swear to God, it's the best HACCP handout out there in the market. And that's at foodsafetyuniversity.com. I would love to talk to you. I always have time to talk to other veterinarians. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
She's talked to me. Yeah, she's so much. What a pure joy. Again, this has been an honor to do these types of interviews, and I can't tell you how excited I am to share your journey with everyone. And as we close, dare I say that you have perhaps one final word about looking back on your career. What do you have to say that was, let's say, a high point of being a veterinarian, and where it has affected where you are now?
I would say one of my high points of being I do this thing as a veteran. Actually, you're all the way on the other side of the country, but you should go to this. So I have a buddy down in Milledgeville, Georgia, a guy named John Jackson. Okay. He runs Comfort Farms. Okay. And he has a boucherie on Martin Luther King Day weekend. And all of these veterinarians, all these veterans come to his farm. Okay. And he is creating a farm as a healing center for veterans. I bring my family every year. Okay. And I teach there. And if you go find Comfort Farms on Instagram, you can see me. And what we do is I spend the weekend teaching people how to do farm to fork food safety.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. Yeah. So that Comfort Farms, we'll put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll link to John's Instagram account.
And so as a veteran and a veterinarian, this is a high point. Okay. Beautiful.
Right. As a veteran, because you're a vet squared, I'm a vet squared. There are like 3,000 of us or something. And I think they're all part of our organization. Yes. And so what I get to do is I get to take everything I learned in vet school. Okay. I get to take everything I learned as a soldier, and then everything I've learned as an entrepreneur and coach. And I get to talk to veterans who are trying to make a difference in their communities with food. Wow.
Beautiful.
They raise food for people. They slaughter animals for people. They raise crops. They run farmers markets. And I get to help them do that more effectively. What on earth? How is that my life?
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. That's that. So you probably just came away from that. You said Martin Luther King weekend?
Martin Luther King Day weekend. If you are a veteran, it's basically an open invitation. And if you are a veterinarian and you don't know what to do, we run the kids fire because we have kids. And so we have a big old bonfire. I spend a lot of the weekend with my feet propped up, warming my toes, somebody next to me talking about how are we going to change the world. Right
on. Beautiful. What a fantastic time that sounds like. Well, thank you so much. We have a lot to put in the show notes because of our past hour and a half with you. I do this every time. I swear I'm going to stick around an hour. It's impossible. And I'm not going to edit this down. I think that it's a wealth of information. For those of you who like to watch this on YouTube, this episode is exactly the same on YouTube, except you get to see our smiling faces. And for those of you who like to drive or do whatever and listen to a podcast, the exact same audio will be on that. And so with that, I say goodbye to everyone. I'll see you all next week with another episode on Friday. And thank you so much again, Michele. You take care, and I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.